Howdy folks, and welcome to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and I have two replays for you today, both very similar and yet at the same time both very, very different. These replays were both sent to me by Flambass, who some of you may know as a World of Warships live streamer, community contributor, and destroyer player for Omni's Kings of the Sea competitive team. Now when Flambass sends me a replay, I do tend to sit up and pay attention because he is insanely good at World of Warships. As you'd expect, he plays for Omni. So when Flambass sends me not one but two replays that both take place on the Two Brothers map, yeah, that one with the channel that runs right down the middle between the two islands, you know the one. The place where all the stupids go at the beginning of the match in order to get their ships blown out from underneath them. Yeah, that one. So when Flambass sends me two replays that both take place on Two Brothers, I know that something spectacular is going to happen. And these two games were no exception. Although they both play out completely differently. In the first replay, which we're watching now, he's actually being quite sensible about this. Now, don't try this at home, kids, because you do need to be good to pull off what you're about to see him do. He's in the Minotaur in this particular battle, British Tier 10 light cruiser, and he's voluntarily giving up one of the biggest advantages of the Minotaur, stealth, in order to assist the carrier on his team to maintain air superiority. What he's doing, and he's communicating with the carrier in chat, is he's heading down this central channel in order to help dominate that airspace. You see, he has his Minotaur fitted out for anti-aircraft duties. I don't know exactly what modifications and captain skills he's chosen, but I do know that the default firing range for the Minotaur's 152mm guns in the anti-aircraft role is 6 kilometers, which is pretty good. But he's going to be slaughtering enemy aircraft from ranges far in excess of 6 kilometers. So he's definitely got some kind of anti-aircraft build going on here. However, the downside to that is that all the time you're shooting aircraft down, you're permanently spotted by those aircraft. And he's in a cruiser that has armour thin enough to embarrass a destroyer. So what he's going to be doing here is insanely dangerous. And he's already shooting aircraft down. Well, he's engaging them. There we go. There's his first aircraft kill. That was at a range of around about 7.5 kilometers, or possibly more. Now, of course, anybody paying attention on the enemy team is fully aware that there's an incredibly vulnerable and fragile light cruiser sailing down the middle of the map, and there's always somebody loitering around the opposite end of this channel waiting to capitalise on exactly that. Of course, Flambass was expecting this. That's what he came down here for. And he's also expecting torpedoes. I mean, of course there are going to be torpedoes. It's so obvious he doesn't even need to use his hydroacoustic search. So he's tucked in nicely behind this rock outcrop, keeping him safe from any torpedoes. He's butchered any aircraft that were in a position to spot him. And he's able to loft those 152mm shells. Oh, and there are the entirely predictable torpedoes. But he's actually able to shell that Moskva with complete impunity without being spotted, at least until fresh aircraft turn up. But the enemy carrier player is rapidly coming to the conclusion that if he wants to actually attack Flambass's team with his aircraft, without losing half of them on the way, he's going to have to start sending them the long way around, purely and simply because Flambass is dominating the airspace around the centre of the map here. And that's not all he's doing. Because he advertised his presence in this channel, how many of those enemy cruisers and potentially battleships do you think are loitering around the other side of the channel just waiting to kill him as he suicides up the middle of the map? And any ships doing that aren't really being much use to the rest of the team. Oh, spotted by aircraft. I think it's the Ibuki over there is launching his catapult fighter to try to spot him, and it worked. But how long do you think that aircraft's... It's already dead. Oh, and there's the enemy Minotaur. Now that first spread of torpedoes that settled down the centre of this channel were fired by that Minotaur, but now he's heading in the other direction. So what do you think the chances are that he turned around in order to fire the torpedoes from the other side? Yeah, there they are. Just as expected. So Flambass has got his hydroacoustic search up here, and he's nosing out to see if he can actually take some shots at anything. But forewarned that the torpedoes were coming, which would have been entirely predictable even if he hadn't been using hydroacoustic search. He's not dumb enough to stick his nose out far enough to catch one of those torpedoes. And there's the radar. At first I thought that was the Moskva, but I think it's actually the enemy Minotaur. There he is. We never actually see this guy smoke up. I think this guy is actually using the radar consumable rather than the smoke generator. So Flambass scored some damage on him, he scored some damage on Flambass. But this Ibuki apparently did not get the memo about sailing out broadside on in front of a Minotaur at point blank range just to be able to fire your torpedoes. So the Ibuki's just lost half of its health for, well, basically nothing. But the Minotaur is getting sick and tired of missing with his torpedoes and he's closing in for a fight. This enemy Minotaur is about to demonstrate exactly how to not do it. Under these circumstances, a one-on-one fight with another Minotaur, the best he can possibly hope for is that he sinks Flambass while losing almost all of his health. But even that's under the best possible circumstances. I'm coming around the corner sideways on. Not the best possible circumstances. Of course he did that so he could get his torpedoes away. But they've all missed because Flambass knew the torpedoes were coming. And now he's dead and Flambass isn't. And now he's going to deal with the Ibuki. He's popped his smoke screen but he's too close. So he's going to have to sink the Ibuki to stay hidden. But the Ibuki is not exactly making it difficult for him. His sonar is still up, so he saw his torpedoes, and he's sitting broadside on to a Minotaur at point blank range. Starts backing off, so he's not going to eat those torpedoes, and here comes the Moskva. And the Moskva activates his radar. So much for the smoke screen. But the Moskva, well, it's difficult to be too judgmental about this guy. Yes, he does eat a couple of citadels as he comes around the corner sideways on, but he's kind of the last ship left alive on his team over there. And he's running away from the rest of Flambass's team, who are in hot pursuit from the left. So while he does turn away to reduce the amount of damage that he takes from Flambass, yeah, it didn't really matter which way that Moskva turned, he was going to be eating citadels from somebody. But the end result of all of that is 3 enemy cruisers are dead, 2 of them tier 10, and he shot down 12 of the Midway's aircraft. And now he can farm himself some nice easy capture points. Oh, enemy Montana spotted. Enemy aircraft closing in again. And he's spotted by aircraft. So with that Montana over there, he's going to have to be careful. He doesn't want to expose himself to getting hit by that thing. Not with the amount of health that he has remaining, but he doesn't have to in order to get into the cap circle. He can just sit here and hopefully get far enough away from or shoot down the aircraft that was spotting him. Right. Oh, where did that Montana go? Well, judging by that lot coming around the corner, if he has any sense whatsoever, he's running away. Maximum speed and Billy Big steps in the other direction. And once again, Flambass is unspotted. Now, he doesn't want to start shooting at the Montana just yet, even though the Montana's guns were actually pointing the other way, because that Monty might not be the only enemy ship that's actually in range and able to shoot at him. So instead he waits, he's finished capping, now he's got the ship turned around, starts unloading the guns at the Montana. This is completely safe. By the time the Montana is able to clear the island and shoot back at him, there'll be nothing to shoot at. Slaughtering more enemy dive bombers, and already turned around and ready to go back straight the way he came to assist in defending the cap on the other end of the channel. Now he is going to have to be careful because, well, somebody's capping Charlie, but no enemy ships are spotted in there, which means that one or more of the 2 enemy destroyers, the Shimakaze and or the Benson, are over there, and the Benson's been spotted, but he's nowhere near the cap circle. And then, just for the briefest fraction of a second, Flambass gets spotted. So let's just think about this for a second. If you get spotted here, and it's not by an aircraft, for just a fraction of a second, there's only one thing it can be. There was a ship right here, sailing in that direction. It's the only possible explanation, and if you didn't see him, it's the Shimakaze. And you know what that means. Fire up the hydroacoustic search, and let's stay nice and close to that rock outcrop and see what the sonar detects. Yep. That's a single spread from the Shimakaze. It's got another 2 launchers. So there's another 10 torpedoes that guy could conceivably have loaded and ready to go. So we must be cautious. And look, spotted again. Still can't see who it is. It cannot possibly be the Benson, it can't be the Tirpitz, it can't be any of those guys. It has to be the Shimakaze. He's a tricky little bugger. He's not spotted anymore though, which means that the Shimakaze has moved out of line of sight. We don't know how far away he is, but he has to be relatively close, even though we know he's outside of sonar range, because otherwise we'd see him. So what we'd like to know now is, did the Shimakaze go left or right, and what's he doing with his second and third torpedo launcher? Well, that's answered our second question. Now that Shimakaze could still have a third set of 5 torpedoes ready to go. But, on the other hand, Flambass does have his hydroacoustic search up. He's still got almost a minute left. These enemy ships ain't going to sink themselves, and in case of emergency, he's got his smokescreen. So he opens up on the nice fat broadside of the Zhao, and that's exactly when he spots the Shimakaze and immediately switches fire at this guy and pops his smoke. The Shimakaze shits his pearly pink Japanese panties, pops his own smokescreen, but Flambass is too close to the Zhao to be able to fire unspotted, so he has to finish this guy off first. Mission accomplished. Next. The Tirpitz. He's now undetected. The Shimakaze can't see him. He's hiding inside his own smokescreen, and oh look! Here comes that third set of 5 torpedoes. It's almost like we can see the future. There's the Shimmer again, run out of his own smokescreen. Flambass is not going to let this guy get away. And he disappears, but he's so confident that he's got him with that final salvo. He ignores him, and he did get him with that final salvo, and there's the Kraken unleashed, and we don't really have time for the Kraken clip, because, well, they're at 920 points, and he's trying to kill himself the Tirpitz. Taking a look at the Benson, who's on fire with his engine knocked out and trying to generate a smokescreen. Trying to finish off the Tirpitz, but it's the Midway who gets the kill, switches his fire to the Benson. There's the Benson torpedoes, just caught it with the tail end of the sonar. And if you can nail this Benson, that'll be kill number 6, 1,000 points, and victory. So, going down the middle in 2 brothers, in a very calculated, calm and professional way. It's a risky move, but Flambass did it in a way that minimised almost all of the risks. It's definitely doable if you're good enough. But that's Flambass when he's taking things seriously. In our next replay, it's the same situation, but seriously, not so much. When Flambass sails out in this division on his live stream, you know the puppies are about to get a savage kicking. Just look at that. That's the USS Flint and a pair of HMS Belfasts. That one division has 3 smokescreens, torpedoes, devastating anti-aircraft firepower, 2 radars, and anything up to 3 hydroacoustic search consumables. So, just in case you're having trouble grasping the implications of just how overpowered a cruiser squadron you're looking at, these 3 cruisers have the potential to stay permanently hidden inside their own smokescreens, while being able to spot their own targets, thanks to the radar, and having warning of any incoming torpedoes, thanks to the sonar. Flambass calls this his cancer division, and while that might be in poor taste, you can kind of see why. So what sort of tactics are we likely to see in play here? Well, it's not going to be too complicated, is it? They've got 3 smokescreens. There's not going to be too much hiding around the corner of the rock outcrop here, the way you saw Flambass in the Minotaur in the previous game. Oh look, there's the targets. Okay, so the Flint's going to pop his smokescreen first. And that Omaha, incredibly lucky none of these guys had armor piercing loaded, or he would already be dead. He has, however, completely overestimated the range of his torpedoes. They only have a 4.5 kilometer range, so they're completely safe. I mean, they've popped the hydroacoustic search anyway, because there may be somebody else down there with slightly longer range torpedoes who is actually in a position to hit them, and they're creeping forward under the cover of the smokescreen. But, well, they're cruisers, not destroyers, so there are some enemy ships that are close enough to be able to spot them while they're firing from the smoke. Like that destroyer, and his torpedoes definitely can reach them from here. And, oh, player 4 has just joined the party. Another destroyer turns up, adds his own smokescreen, and this poor little Minakaze, you know, I think this may actually be the first time that guy has ever run into a radar cruiser, because if he kept going he would have been fine, but instead he turned around, slowed down and dropped his smokescreen. in front of 2 radar cruisers. And he's realised his mistake, but not in time. So there's their first victim, the Minakazi. And the radar isn't going to be up for that much longer. Both the Belfasts have access to the radar, but it only lasts about 20 seconds. The sonar, on the other hand, well, they can keep the sonar going pretty much forever, so they're never going to get surprised by any of these torpedoes. And a lot of these torpedoes are falling short as well, probably fired by the Nürnberg who was out there. They only have a 6-kilometre range. However, we're about to suffer our first casualty. Most of those enemy ships have been focusing their fire on the Flint, driven by Runner 357, and he has gone down. So that leaves us Flambass and Hentai Senpai in the 2 Belfasts, assisted by this little Fushun. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people in light cruisers think it's a good idea to sail broadside on at the mouth of this channel just to be able to fire some torpedoes. And even though these torpedoes do actually have the range for once, they're still not going to hit anything because these are Belfasts. I mean, they've got hydroacoustic search. Not that they need it, of course, because if you're in a torpedo-armed cruiser pulling a suicidal move like that and not firing your guns, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what it is you're actually doing. Well, anyway, the smoke screen has expired, and that is a New York over there, so Hentai Senpai moves up in order to deploy his own smoke screen and keep all 3 of them covered. The New York's burning nicely, and I'm just wondering about that Farragut. Yeah, that guy. Flambass's sonar is on cooldown. His radar's available, but he doesn't need to use it because that Farragut has been detected by Hentai Senpai's sonar. He's well inside range, and if the Farragut is in range, then any torpedoes that the Farragut launches will also be in range. And then suddenly a wild Gneisenau appears. Well, alright, that did make things a little bit more complicated, but they've set the Gneisenau on fire, and sure enough, here comes the Farragut, trying to do what so many other ships before him have tried and failed at. A Farragut at point-blank range, not firing his guns at you. Gee, I wonder what he's doing. And there are the torpedoes. Well, that was entirely predictable. But while the Farragut has definitely failed at torpedoing, he has succeeded in doing one thing. He's forced them to reveal themselves in front of a Gneisenau. So this is probably going to hurt. And it's at this point where Flambass thinks, yeah, we're dead. And so he just decides to go for it and do as much damage as he possibly can before his inevitable demise, starting with the Omaha. And the Gneisenau is turning broadside on, so he's obviously also firing torpedoes. So while kicking this Omaha to death with his armor piercing, his priority is to avoid the Gneisenau's torpedoes and then get around him so he can't bring his turrets to bear. Now that's bad news for Hentai Senpai and the other Belfast because the Gneisenau is going to finish him off. And yes, that's a Shawls. And in Algeria, he's killed the Omaha. There are the Shawls' torpedoes. And he momentarily thought, you know what, I'm about to die. I'll just ram the Shawls and we'll call it a day. But then he thought, actually, no. I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. Let's make them work for it. He aborts the ram at the last second. Hentai Senpai and the other Belfast has fallen victim to the Gneisenau's secondaries. But what the Gneisenau doesn't know is that there's a Fushun hiding inside Hentai Senpai's smokescreen. And so that of course means we now also have a dead enemy Gneisenau. There are the Algeria's torpedoes. And why is this Shawls not firing his rear gun turrets? Why is he sitting broadside on to the Belfast's 152mm armor piercing? Oh, look, he's launching his torpedoes. I think I see a pattern emerging here, and it's only now that the Shawls is actually letting rip with his guns, but it's far too late, because Flambass has sunk him too. And now it's the turn of the Algeria, who's probably sitting there thinking, how did this all go so wrong? Come on, Flambass. Do it for your Uncle Jingles and the high caliber medal. And there it is. And then he's about to start giving the good news to the New York over there as well, when his rampage is finally brought to an end by an enemy Indianapolis who fired a shot from somewhere over there, clean over the other side of the map. So that was Flambass showing off 2 entirely different approaches to making light cruisers work when advancing down the middle of the map on 2 brothers. One example just a little bit more methodical than the other with a little bit more panic and sheer desperation, but both, I'm sure you'll agree, equally entertaining and surprisingly effective. And if you like what you saw, I'll put a link down below in the video description to Flambass's Twitch page, where he regularly streams World of Warships most days. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Flambass, thank you very much for sending those replays in. Don't be shy, keep them coming. And I hope everybody else enjoys their weekend, because that's it from me. Until tomorrow's casual Saturday video, take care, and I'll catch you next time.